What's up, guys? Welcome to the Wolf of Young Street podcast. My name is Victor. I'm your host. Yesterday, Justin Trudeau made some big announcements. Today, we're going to be dwelling on changes to the temporary foreign worker program. I'm going to bring you those quotes, and we're gonna take some reactions that I've gathered off Reddit, and we're going to try and piece together what this implies for the economy and for affordability and for some of the problems that Canada is currently facing. But here are those quotes.
2 years ago, in the aftermath of the pandemic and facing severe labor shortages, we adjusted the program for temporary foreign workers. That's what the business community needed. That's what the business community was asking for. And at that moment in time, those changes helped. They helped the economy, and they helped businesses make it through a challenging moment in our economic recovery. But today's economy is very different from it was 2 years ago. Inflation has started to come down, employment is higher, and we no longer need as many temporary foreign workers. We need Canadian businesses to invest in training and technology and not increasing their reliance on low-cost foreign labor. It's not fair to Canadians struggling to find a good job, and it's not fair to those temporary foreign workers, some of whom are being mistreated and exploited. So I asked my minister to work on this over the summer, and we are taking action. We are tightening the rules and restricting eligibility to reduce the number of low-wage temporary foreign workers in Canada, with exceptions in certain industries like healthcare, construction, and food security. We'll also be looking at changes to the high-wage stream of the program as part of the minister's expedited 90-day review. So to those who would complain about worker shortages, here's my message. There is no better time to hire and invest in Canadian workers.
Okay, so obviously that was what the Prime Minister said, but what you didn't hear in that particular excerpt I just played you was the fact that there will be changes to the permanent residence programs as well, was something the Prime Minister sort of foreshadowed to be coming as well. And apart from that, that he essentially promised there will be more changes to immigration programs in Canada. So let's kind of zone in on these temporary foreign worker restrictions. I'm going to go through a little bit of history for you guys here. So obviously this problem really became a big thing post-COVID. So 2022, or maybe I should go back a little bit further. During COVID, what happened, right? We went into lockdowns in March of 2020, I want to say March of 2020. And what did this imply? A lot of people lost jobs, and we were kind of locked at home for a while, so not producing anything, and a lot of businesses shut down and all of that. The economy essentially stagnated. Now, a lot of people will argue that it was suicidal for us to close down the country like that, and sort of argue against the merits of a lockdown. Now, I'm not going to criticize the Trudeau government for joining, as did a lot of governments around the world, for joining lockdowns, because we were dealing with a pandemic that we did not understand well enough at the time, and essentially was really in the moment. And this is the difference here between a critic and a person who is in the trenches. I cannot criticize lockdown. It was necessary at the time. It was done. But what that meant was essentially stagnation of the economy. Now, fast forward to 2022, October or so, when we reopened, at this time, vaccine that rolled out, and we were finally confident that the pandemic was under control and all of that stuff. The task on the Trudeau government was to reopen in a way that avoids hardship on the people. Now, what that did was production needed to increase really suddenly, basically going from a halt to like 100 in 2 seconds, really. Obviously, there was a lot of pent-up demand that built up through COVID. You think about how you felt coming out of lockdown. The travel sector was one that really felt this a lot, where people were just like, as soon as we were out of lockdown, lots of people just wanted to travel because they had not been able to travel for 2 years or so. There was an increased demand for stuff, and production needed to increase to meet some of the demands for stuff, essentially. And at the time, a lot of businesses were struggling to fill certain positions, especially those low wage positions. So, for example, in the agricultural sector. So the government, the Trudeau led government made a decision to bring, to allow more an influx of temporary foreign workers into Canada. And what did that cause? For 2022 alone, there were about 415,000 temporary foreign workers brought into Canada. 445,000 study permit holders were approved and came to Canada in 2022. 2023, obviously, that number was closer to like 800,000. The problem with bringing so many people to Canada in such a short period of time is the fact that, well, unfortunately, we were not ready infrastructure wise in terms of housing, in terms of services and healthcare and that kind of stuff to be able to accommodate these new arrivals. And what did that do to housing, for example? Suddenly you have this many people coming, needing a place to live. They got to live somewhere, right? This many foreign workers arriving who have to live somewhere, but we don't have adequate supply of housing to cater to that rapid increase in population. Well, that, unfortunately, if you remember your high school economics, there's a lot of demand with a lot of people arriving, not enough supply of housing, prices go up. And hence we land in this particular point in time where there's an affordability problem with regards to housing and and with regards to jobs, we end up in a situation where because these businesses that I spoke about earlier are able to fill in, they're able to fill in these positions with low income earners, essentially, with the foreign workers. There's not a lot of encouragement to increase wages as much. So now the other thing was with inflation, again, bringing in so many more people in such a short period of time. What that does is, well, again, that demand is up. With demand being up and supply not being able to match that, prices go up. So prices of goods and services go up, and with prices of goods and services going up, the wages have not been able to keep up. And when the wages are not able to keep up and the prices of goods and services continue to go up, what do you have? Inflation. And that number peaked at around 8.1% sometime in June of 2022. Inflation, housing crisis, then you throw on problems like the strain on public services, on healthcare and education systems. You see why a lot of people, and obviously this has coincided with a lot of loss of goodwill for the Trudeau government. Unfortunately, this is where we are. We're currently in the middle of an affordability crisis and a housing crisis. As a first step, the Trudeau government reduced the number of new study permits issued by 35% compared to 2023. But obviously that has not been enough, and clearly, the Trudeau government has had its critics because of this policy over the last 2 years. Hence their move towards restricting even further temporary resident migration to Canada. So I've hit the streets, and by streets I mean Reddit, to see, so I kind of feel the pulse of Canadians, and I'll bring you some quotes here on some opinions that people have shared online. So this particular thread comes from the subreddit Canada Politics. The title of this thread is Trudeau announces reduction in temporary foreign workers, suggests more immigration changes to come. And I'm just going to go through the top comment here and maybe a few more further down before it gets toxic. The top comment here comes from Danke U. So shout out to you, Danke U. Person says, here are the words of the guy I voted for. As a result of Harper-era politics, the number of short-term foreign workers in Canada has more than doubled from 141,000 in 2005 to 338,000 in 2012. There were nearly as many temporary foreign workers admitted into the country in 2012 as there were permanent residents. So at this rate, by 2015, temporary foreign worker entries will outnumber permanent resident entries. This has all happened under the Conservatives' watch. despite repeated warnings from the Liberal Party and from Canadians across the country about its impact on middle-class Canadians. It drives down wages and displaces Canadian workers. That sounds like a wise guy, but ironically, this quote was actually said by Justin Trudeau in 2014. It's interesting in light of current events. Justin Trudeau criticizing the Harper government for doing exactly what the Trudeau government did in 2022, essentially accepting an unprecedented number of temporary foreign workers. Okay, so and just to round up the comment here, after massively expanding far beyond the Harper era numbers, I hope that 2024 Justin Trudeau takes a page from 2014 Justin Trudeau to actually ramp it down. But I fear it may be another performance. So that was the comment by Danke You. And then sort of a follow-up comment by Canadian Troll Toll that says, JT, so Justin Trudeau, is a classic politician. Says one thing, does another thing, and says the opposite. And he says, Polyev, so PP will probably be the same. I don't know how you guys tell me how you guys feeling about this about the next election. Obviously, we're a year out. Justin Trudeau is going up against Pierre Polyev. Are you guys optimistic about, if you don't go with Justin Trudeau, for example, are you optimistic about Pierre Polyev? You guys let me know. So the next comment here is from Polo Con Teriyaki. The person says, they should also beef up the CBSA, show that you're serious about immigration reform, give the agency that has oversight on this more tools to actually enforce the rules. That is true. That's a fair point to make. So, the last comment I'm going to take here is from 1%3943, and the person says, Liberals' only chance of staving off a bad loss is getting super active about curbing migration and start building like crazy. Is that possible? Almost certainly not. But I am certain there's a lot of people looking for any excuse not to vote Conservative. Obviously, this person is conservative at heart. Before we go, I won't go further down the timeline here with the comments because I think we've touched the cream of the crop there. The next subreddit I thought the next subreddit I thought I'd hit was Our Canada. So this one was posted by Useless Political Hack on Our Canada, on the subreddit Our Canada. And the subreddit is titled, Many gaps remain in the Liberals' new restrictions on temporary foreign workers, clearly. And the top comment here is from Pudra, and it says, this program should not be able to be used in urban areas for low-skilled jobs. This program was originally made to bring in high-skilled people who had skills we need. Then it opened up to a low-skilled version to help organizations in rural areas since they actually have low labor pools. And no one is going to move to a rural area to work a seasonal job. Good point. These are also for sectors that are actually important to society, like food production. The fact that a effing Tim Hortons in a major city can use this program is so stupid. If people aren't willing to work at a place, let that place die. Maybe we don't need a Starbucks and Tim's on every corner if you can't even get Canadians to work there. That's a really tough perspective here. I don't know if I have the heart to let Starbucks and Tim Hortons die, my guy, my lady. But yeah, to each his own. Yeah. Obviously, someone replies here to that comment. Ping pong tits. Ping pong tits replies to the comment I just read saying, now there's no need except in the area of doctors, and that has to do more with Canada restricting the number of doctors it graduates, doesn't it? I have relatives with degrees in computer science, IT, and various science degrees who are struggling to find adequate work in our region. Yet there are thousands of students in the region, all to eventually compete for the same jobs. This is the classic, taxi driver who is actually an engineer problem that we have in Canada, or a person working a service job who is actually a doctor from wherever they came from, not being able to work in that profession. This is a classic problem we've had in Canada for quite some time. Pudra replies, ping pong tits here, says, There's an absolutely huge need in healthcare and construction. I agree, we're bringing in way too many of the wrong people. And then someone replies, guilty underscore fishing 8229 replies, there's never been a huge need in healthcare. They just need to open more spots in schools to train domestic doctors and nurses. We set impossibly high standards that combine this with extremely low number of training spots for Canadian registered nurses domestically. They turn around and import tens of thousands of LPNs from the Philippines with far worse education to try and make up the difference. Okay, I don't know that that is entirely true, but we get the point. And obviously, ping pong tits was not going to be outdone here. So the person comes back in and says, I know someone who tried to get into the nursing program in our area, but there's no spots available as they are filled with international students. So yes, at least some people are getting in. They make more money training some people as opposed to others, maybe. Anyways, so that there's a lot more further down that line of conversation that I don't think I want to follow here. Let's see, maybe there might be some gold mines down here. Actually, someone called Spectre Ballistics basically says here that there was never a labor shortage for low-skilled urban jobs, just a pay shortage. And to which the user XX Hams XX from Prince Edward Island says, I bet if you raise Tim's pay $10 an hour, you'd see quite the improvement in the applications. Even then, that's barely enough to survive. And Hudra, who seems very invested in this particular conversation, goes on to say, yeah, exactly. You can't find employees in an urban area. It's because your job isn't attractive. You should then, as a business, make that job offer more attractive. Instead, they just get to go, no one's applying, let's fly someone in. Okay, so I actually thought I'd address this particular point that people make about the fact that a lot of companies who choose to fly people in as temporary foreign workers should just, increase their wages and all of that good stuff. Increase their wages to make the job more attractive so Canadians want to do that. There was a good point somewhere within that conversation. Obviously, not a lot of Canadians would be open, irrespective of whatever the wages are, to move to the middle of nowhere. So there's that problem. But in an urban area where again, it's not a shortage of people, there's people around, why don't they just increase wages? Well, see, here's the thing. With increased wages, that's the price of doing business, right? Yeah, you can pack it onto the business's bottom line. But what a lot of people don't understand is that, yes, now the company is incurring more cost, and that cost will flow to the price of things. So because of more wages, are you willing to accommodate paying $2 for your $1 coffee? Because all of these prices, this increased costs of production of business, will always get passed on to the consumer. Now, you could argue that obviously in the last 2 years, grocers have made year on year, year over year profits, they're all-time highs in terms of like their profit margins. They should be able to conveniently fund wages while still keeping prices low. Well, we all know these guys find a way to always pass the cost to consumers. It's just the unfortunate truth. So, are you willing to pay more? That's my question for you. So, the last subreddit I thought I'd hit real quick here, talk about some highlights, is the subreddit Canadian. And the title of the thread here is Trudeau's cut to the foreign worker program does not go nearly far enough. And I just go through the top comment here. Someone says, this person, Backy12, says, must be an election coming up, to which there's a reply from Just Incredible 240. That's a great name. Person says, election is over a year away. If we want to see significant change, we'll have to wait until the campaign starts next summer. And Backy12 comes back strong here, says, the only change I want to see is him gone, to be honest. I'm hoping to find some gold mines here within the comment. Try and sift through a bit of toxicity can be a bit difficult, So, okay, yeah, so I found the comment here that I want to read. So, Nodal Exchange actually asks a valid question. what amounts to corporate tax cheats are not Trudeau's fault. Look to greedy corporations. Yeah, you as I just mentioned not too long ago, um, a lot of these grocers, the Canadian Superstore, Loblaws is the name of the parent company. Walmart are basically having record profits the last 2 years, despite your costs being high. So maybe it's worth looking at corporations, but obviously you cannot really excuse the Trudeau government from this because it is on them to try and go after these corporations if necessary in order to keep costs low for Canadians. So, irrespective of whether it is directly their fault or not, they're still responsible. It's just the way it is, right? So, and Sproutosaurus Rex replies that comment from Noble Exchange saying, I mean, the federal government did not remove the cap on LMIAs when unemployment went over a certain percentage, which definitely helped create some of the issues with LMIAs. You aren't wrong that a lot of the issues are not based on any federal policy changes, just provincial government, companies, and schools taking advantage at every turn to exploit existing policies to the breaking point. And a person with this really funny username, I think white women are hot, says government capped study permits at diploma mills and basically put them out of business overnight. They are equally to blame. So I guess that's the other thing that people don't understand as well about like temporary about some of these temporary visas, right? A lot of people don't realize the role that students play in keeping your institutions, your universities afloat. It is a fact for every single school in Canada that international students pay at least times 3, or if not times 4 of what domestic students pay. Now that accounts for a lot of money when you really put it together. When you really put it together, that is really how these institutions are able to pay for certain infrastructure, are able to create certain diverse programs that cater to not just the international students, but also cater to domestic students as well. With the new caps and the new restrictions on study permits, well, these universities are going to have to figure out what to do about funding. So that's just something I thought I'd bring up. And the last bit of reaction I'll take here is from PM me your beaver tails is the username here. These usernames on Reddit are just so hilarious. And this person says there are 1 million temporary foreign workers in Canada. Cutting 65,000 makes no difference. In total, there are close to 3 million temporary residents in Canada, not counting the estimated 500,000 illegal immigrants. To which there's a reply from that-equipment 3792 saying, CIBC in my hometown had a line out the door yesterday morning of immigrants opening new bank accounts. What the F is going on? Right. And OK_significance 4940 says they get access to to services before Canadians do. I don't know if that's true, buddy. But obviously you can see that lots of Canadians are frustrated with the affordability crisis, with the housing crisis, with the difficulty accessing services. Obviously, if you've been to an ER lately, you see that there's quite a long wait time to access all these services. And obviously, these problems have been leveled at the feet of the Trudeau government, to which, with an election coming up, no less, the Canadian government is doing their utmost to try and reverse some of their earlier decisions. Now, I think this is a start. I actually think this is a good idea. The Trudeau government is doing the right thing here. Obviously, their initial idea with increasing foreign workers was done with the economy in mind, with Canadians in mind. Now, the execution of that has clearly come back to bite them in the butt. But they're doing the right thing. They made tough decisions when they had to, and right now also they're making a tough decision in the face of growing public frustration. It remains to be seen how they proceed and if this changes the public sentiment towards Trudeau. Okay, so there you go. Those are some reactions from Reddit on the newly announced restrictions on the temporary foreign worker program. In the future, I'll be doing other reactions to some of the decisions that the Trudeau government is currently looking to make to the immigration policies and some of the other policies that they discuss. For example, in the same announcement, Justin Trudeau announced a 100% tariff on EVs coming from China. Now there's been a fallout out of that, but we'll react to that in a different video. So thank you so much for tuning in today. You guys, if you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe down below. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for listening.